Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and today we are going to continue our Brothers War series. Hopefully, you have already had the opportunity to check out my general budget perspective, the comprehensive codes, and of course, the tier list videos for both the jump in and budget deck metas. Today, we are going to begin our limited content series on this, and it's probably going to be about 4 videos this time around. Today, it is a limited draft environment primer as we begin our quick drafts of Brothers War, everything you need to be thinking about to maximize the value out of each and every one of your drafts. Stay tuned. Before we get into all that, take just a second and smash the like button. Truly, it'll only take a moment to do all of those YouTube things, and it really helps the community. Speaking of community, if you haven't been seeing our community updates, take a moment, tap the bell icon, and update your notification settings. There's a lot of great information, and your voice can help shape the future of the channel. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. All right, so with quick drafting starting up for Brothers War, hopefully you have used these first couple of weeks of the Brothers War release to focus in on your jump in play. For me, it only took about 9 or 10 jump in events before I felt like this event style had played itself out and I had gotten as much value out of this as I can. If you haven't quite reached that point yet, it is a wise idea to do those last couple jump-in events before you start in on your value drafting, your quick drafting, in order to fill out those commons and uncommons. And of course, quick drafting is all about filling out that lower rarity area of your collection so that when you open up packs, you kind of coast into complete play sets of your commons and uncommons. And this time, because of retro frame artifacts changing the pack compositions a little bit, these expected outcomes have changed just slightly. The uncommons remain at approximately 1 uncommon from the base set out of, 1 copy of each of the uncommons from having open packs, and just under 2 commons at 1.7 when you open your packs. So if you have drafted up 3 copies of your uncommons and 2 to 3 copies of your commons, you can pretty consistently coast into this point once you open your packs. The weird thing about this, of course, is standard variation is a thing. So you might get anywhere from 0 to 4 copies of any given uncommon, but this gives you a good guideline so you know how far you need to go with your drafting. And of course, using quick draft as a mechanism for building our collection is always about finding that balancing point between drafting your value and winning more gems, more packs, etc. And that is going to differ from person to person depending upon how much experience you have at trying to do this, and it also changes from set to set. For instance, Brothers War shifts the idea towards drafting your value and accepting the fact that that is probably going to mean less wins, but that is the ideal state for most of us. And that's because Brothers War is the bomb. Well, more specifically, it's full of bombs. And yes, people say that about every limited environment, but really it is more true here than I have ever really seen it on Arena before. In large part because Brothers War features these retro frame artifacts, and that effectively means there's 2 rares in every single pack. So all of your limited environment play is going to be dealing with the fact that you have a lot more rares and mythics floating around in people's pools. Beyond that, you have a lot of virtual bomb cards, things that are very hard to deal with at every level of rarity, right down to commons and uncommons. And you just don't see that in every single set. And we're seeing this degree of beefy cards in commons and uncommons, things with very high converted mana costs, because of the existence of Power Stones in Brothers War. In fact, I have talked at prior points about Brothers War having nearly double the amount of 6 mana casting costs than the entire prior standard environment before it. So again, those huge commons and uncommons coming down are going to make a difference. This also means as we're drafting this set, a lot of these cards are not going to be playable outside of something like a ramp shell. And that's something we're going to have to keep in mind this season, is if we want to play some of these cards, we're going to need to commit to building some sort of ramp shell for a standard budget deck. Hopefully everyone took the opportunity to get involved with the Midweek Magic Phantom Sealed. And one of the things that we talked about in that primer video was not to build red-based aggressive decks in Sealed, because they tend to not work out because of the lack of card selection and the lower synergy that you're going to find within your pool. In draft, however, these style of decks tend to be quite good. And in fact, from what we've seen of the draft environment, the red-white and red-green red-based aggro decks are some of the best you can be building in this environment. I also talked about black being the best color in the overall environment for limited, and this is a position that was pretty well supported by the pro limited players that I pay attention to. And while black has proven to be the best standalone color, what we are beginning to see is that black doesn't really pair well with any of the other 4 colors quite as effectively as you want. So you get individually good cards, but maybe not as good on the decks. One thing that I did really question in the initial pre-release days on this were the pro assessment that white was really bad. In fact, most of the pros for limited were talking about it being the worst color in the format, and I really didn't understand that. In the opening weeks of the limited environment since the release of Brothers War, I am very pleased to see that the overall pro opinion on white has shifted dramatically, going from the thinking that it was the worst color to it is probably the best overall color. This, of course, is led by really excellent commons of Prison Sentence and the Chaplain. Since this environment is so slanted towards drafting our value, we probably are not going to be giving up our early picks to pick up these very good commons. Really, we're going to leave that for other people and take the rares and mythics that they passed. When you start hitting packs that don't have those rares and mythics, most likely picks 3 to 5, you want to have a keen eye for premium white uncommons like Static Net and Combat Thresher. These cards are definitely punching above their weight as uncommons. With that high bomb value of this set, forcing us to, or at least encouraging us to use our early picks to pick up those extra rares, mythics, and hard to find uncommons, it is going to make us even more dependent than usual on making good, solid late picks. When it comes to uncommons in white, a card like Thopter Architect is pretty universally thought to be good, And personally, I think Repair and Recharge is, at this point, somewhat of a sleeper late pick. However, a casting cost of 5 mana and 2 white mana symbols could result in some dead draws. I don't know that I would be comfortable picking up more than one of these, even for a very white deck. When it comes to commons, look for things like Phalanx Vanguard, Power Stone Engineer, and Aeronaut Cavalier for those initial late picks in each pack. Those are going to go a long way to serving any white-based deck. Another series of commons to keep an eye out for in those early, or I guess I should say initial late picks, are going to be the common cycle of self-millers. We've already talked about the Chaplain in white, the black self-miller, the Gigamole, also very good. I think the Blanchwood Prowler is kind of middle of the road, universally good, and is a solid mid-pack pick for a green card. The blue and red, however, are a little more focused on a synergy and are going to be more of a build-around card. But if your initial picks are heavily into those colors or those deck-building concepts, those are going to be solid picks as well. Also, coming off of the You Can Do No Wrong with Your Mana environment of Dominaria United, I really want to caution folks out there to the fact that mana fixing in this set ranges from non-existent to not very good. There are a couple of the retro frame artifacts that make this a little bit better, but of course there's no guarantee you're going to see those at all. So really you're down to about 4 cards, 2 of which are green, the other 2 are colorless. The net result here is you don't want to get fancy and try and go a 3-color deck. Maybe if you've got a couple of these mana fixings, maybe splash 1, perhaps even 2 cards that really make a difference in your deck. But by and large, you're going to want to stick to 2-color decks. All right, so now that we've got that overview of the limited environment out of the way, I have taken the liberty of compiling all of my limited playthrough up to this point. I've compiled it for some high-speed footage. It's about 15 minutes, 5 games, mostly sped up so that you can see more of the interactions. But of course, if you need a better look at the game state at any given moment, that's what the pause button's for. So enjoy it, guys. See you again soon. And folks, before you go, make sure you've subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on a thing. Because I know I can't change the magic economy all by myself, but I think we can.